Now, South African breakdancer Courtnae Paul jetted off to Shanghai, China for the first round of the Olympic qualifying series last week. Paul was one of the 4 African female breakers competing at the OQS, where the top 40 athletes in the world will compete for 10 spots at the 2024 Paris Olympic Games. She joins us now. A good morning to you, Courtnae. Thank you so much for joining us on Sports on Morning Live.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me.
Let's talk about the Paris Olympics and what this looks like, because this wouldn't be the first time that you get an opportunity to represent South Africa on an international level. And what would you say are some of those key lessons you've learned from previous competitions that you'll take with you into the Olympics?
So I think the main thing for me is that South Africa has something really special about us. I think, geographically we're so far away from everything, so we might not know what specifically in breaking, it's such a different kind of sport. We might not have our finger on the pulse with how the dialect is changing, but there's something different when we get on the floor. And I think that's the main thing whenever I compete or perform anywhere around the world is I want to bring my African and South African essence with me, or else I'm just like a carbon copy of everybody else. So yeah, I think that small thing is definitely, it's going to take me where I need to go.
It's that thing that's just going to make you a cut above the rest. Let's talk about the Paris Olympics, though. How much of a stride is this for the sport of breaking, the fact that for the first time we will have breaking at the Olympic Games?
I can't explain, man. It's huge because, prior to lockdown, I can't even count on one hand the amount of platforms that existed for breakers locally. And, around the world, there's competitions every week. But here, it's really just a pastime. If you're breaking, people are like, why are you still doing that? Don't you have a job or something else to do with your life? So this, I think, has brought not just a platform, but so many eyeballs to the dance and to the sport. And people are completely amazed at it. So I think the initial move from the Olympics was to bring a little bit more of a youthful attention to the platform, and I think breaking is just that. If you took the time to watch even one competition, I think people's minds would be absolutely blown. And we've seen the transition from just dancers, like street dancers, to suddenly being elite athletes and representing countries and signing massive deals. It's really changed the landscape of dance and sport, and I don't think we go backwards from here. I think we see dancers being able to create sustainable careers and just be able to constantly take this thing further and make it an actual viable industry.
And talking about not seeing it taking any steps backward, let's speak to ever since you started breaking and the quality of competition that you see with female breakers in South Africa. How has that been for you? And do you feel that you're at a stage now that it helps you get better because we're seeing an increase in the quality of the competition? Or would you say it makes it a little bit difficult for you to get used to what's happening locally, and then you go abroad and you get this major shock of just the level and standard that exists elsewhere?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a 50-50. On one hand, we are still trying to grow the scene. And again, because there's so little opportunity, it's very difficult to keep people in the scene. People are, whether they're in school or they've got jobs, it's like, hey, can you come train? And you're like, why? So it's a difficult one. But the level is definitely growing. We've got something called the Red Bull BC1, which now has a B-girl category. So you've seen the level really go up, and when we go overseas, we're not lost. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm just scratching the surface of I want to say the top % of the world, if you will. So all of it really plays a part in it. You can't just wake up from training here and go and compete overseas. It just doesn't make sense. So these local competitions are so important to constantly be testing your skill, because what makes breaking different from other sports is that it's one-on-one. It's you versus me. It's a DJ that plays music that I have no control of. And the only way you get into that zone is constantly putting yourself in that kind of situation, And when you're training just in studio, you're comfortable. So you're not going to get that feeling of how is my body going to react when I'm nervous, when there's a different floor, there's a different sound, there's a person who's really good in front of me. So those kind of competitions are really important, irrespective of the level. But I will say that we've still got some strides to make.
And for you, when you speak of those strides, realistically, Paris Olympics 2024, what is your goal?
So right now, I like to be a little bit strategic in the way I go about things, right? So with the last 10 slots that go to the Olympics, they take the top 7 from Shanghai and from Budapest, which we go to next month. But the way things have been set up over the last 4 years, Africa specifically has only had one qualifier, which has been quite a gripe of mine, because you need to earn points, right? So you go into the ranking. So we've had one over the 4-year period, and Europe, for example, will have 4 to 6 a year, you know? So these people are competing, they're earning points, and then you expected to just go into this pool with people and, you know, suddenly get that top 7 spots. But there is something called universality. So there is a little bit of, it's not completely clear how they're going to go about this, but I know if I can stay top of the continent, that's going to make me happy. So in Shanghai, I did that. And I can only hope that we get one of those universality spots, because the continent is underrepresented. So that's kind of what I'm hoping for. I'm giving it my all. I did a lot better in Shanghai than I expected. I just missed the next round by 1. And at that level, it's insane to do that. So I was super happy. I got very sick when I was there. So I was fighting a lot of different things, but I feel really good about it. And I think irrespective of what happens, it's a leap in the right direction.
Courtney, always a pleasure chatting to you, and we wish you all the best as you continue with your qualification. Ladies and gentlemen, Courtnae Paul, South African breaking legend when it comes to breaking for women in the country.